monster, as far as I've heard, I don't know. There seems to be some conclusive evidence to both. I can see both sides of the story as to whether or not the monster's actually real. I don't know.
Yeah, that started here at Donnelley Park. That was the first, 30, 50, 150 years ago. Monster scared people and they started running and they said, this feels good, and they just kept doing it.
I've heard things, I heard them say, how he's got tendrils and all this other stuff. I think people need to just leave him alone. He just wants to be left alone.
I have. It's about, I don't know, I haven't seen it personally, but everybody's told me that, there's something here, so,
But he probably only comes out at night, Probably one of those half reptile, half human type things. Comes out and then goes back into the water.
Oh, those people, they must have died, drowning or something. I know the monster, I still don't like the term monster. I know he would never touch them in a bad way. He just wants to be their friends, but he probably wants to be left alone. But I still don't think that would ever motivate him to hurt anyone.
Please state your name and occupation.
My name's George Glass, and I am not currently employed, but I make my living.
The man is insane. He's crazy. He needs help, and apparently instead of trying to get him help, we're listening to the things that he says. And
well, everyone talks about the evidence. Where's the evidence? Where can we find the evidence? Where can you find the non-evidence? I mean, where's that? You don't find it. Where are the books written on the non-evidence? There's none. There's no book. Thousands of books written on this monster. Where's the non-evidence? Doesn't exist.
He thinks a prehistoric creature exists in a lake that is not prehistoric. The lake is younger than the town.
The 19 times I've seen it, apparently there's something called a lens cap, and well, no one told me until later, because I was using the film, and I only got one shot each, and each time the lens cap was on, and I mean, they still looked okay, but I could still see it, but no one else could.
I do not even think he has seen it. I think he's full of shit.
I think that when the lake was much bigger and had the offshoots into the ocean, then he just he found his way here. He felt out that it was his home. He stayed there, and then as it grew small, he had no way out. So there he is.
Men dug a hole and put water in it. In order for there to be any sort of creature in there, someone would have had to put it there. There's no logical line that you can go from man-made lake to prehistoric monster. And do you feel that I feel ridiculous answering this question?
What do I think of George Glass? He's a crazy motherfucker. I mean, that guy's always inside of, he's always looking at, Snopes.com, looking at one of those websites, about all those urban legends and whatnot, always coming up with crazy theories.
Your chances of seeing something would be about 98.5%. Most people, for some reason, who go look hit on that 2.5% or the 1.5% or 5, 6. Yeah, they hit on that. They hit on whatever percent, and they never find it. I don't know why. I'm always on the 98.5%.
Dr. Glass brings shame to the name of plesiosaurus experts. He makes me look crazy. I like plesiosaurus. He doesn't. He's got this weird ego trip. He thinks he knows everything. He doesn't. There's no monsters in this lake.
I visit the lagoon every Tuesday and 3 times in March, because it really gets aggressive in March, and I try. I got this right here to fight it.
What is that?
This is the solution I made, and it fears.
It looks like Windex.
It's not, as you can clearly see. There's no Windex on here. But one squirt, and he's gone.
Have you ever had a confrontation?
Of course. I mean, look how empty the bottle is. I mean, that's proof right there. What else would I use it for? Nothing.
To clean glass, maybe?
I'll clean his ass with it. That's what I do. Huh? What is it? Nothing. Does that look clean to you?
My name is Robert Bosque. I'm the park security guard over at Donnelley Park. Most of my run-ins with George Glass are chasing him out of the park, being there after hours, you know, just stumbling around, screaming about the monster. That is not there.
You know, I don't like the accusations that have been made about the mental state of my cousin. It's very unrespectful, and I know there's nothing wrong with him up there in those gears he's got in his head turning, but he's definitely healthy. I wouldn't say a word against his mental health, and anybody who does, I got no respect for those people.
How long has this creature existed? My question is, how long hasn't it existed? I mean, since I've been here, I say, longer than this bottle.
Do you think George Glass... What do you think George Glass is seeing, if anything?
I don't know. There are a lot of things about George Glass that I don't know. The name sounds fake. I mean, have you ever seen the man's license? George Glass. Where to start with George Glass? Have you ever seen George Glass without that bottle in his hand? And I'm pretty sure it's always the same bottle. I don't know what he's refilling it with, but I've never seen him buy a new one. He always just seems to have liquid in the same bottle that he's drinking. I don't even know what it is.
Known my cousin my whole life, mostly, or his whole life, whichever one, I don't know. And, you know, I'm sure he's picked up a bottle or two occasionally within the past, and I'm sure he's always been able to put it down. I've always seen that he can put it down. You know, it doesn't seem like a problem for him.
Thinking about the piñatas at these Latino parties, if you notice, they all have 4 legs, and they're horses and donkeys and creatures of myth. I mean, what do you think they're modeled after? Him! And what do you think they do when they beat him down and they tear open his insides? Then the little kids pick him up and put him in their mouths. They're eating him.
The entire thing is kind of sad, to tell you the truth. There is a man who is obviously unbalanced and unhealthy and is ranting about an imaginary monster, and I'm here talking to you about it.
I mean, even when he is, drinking the sauce, I'm sure he has a pretty good distinction of what's there and what's not. He might be a little fuzzy on details, but I definitely don't think it has any effect on whether or not it's true.
George Glass does not have a drinking problem. Well, he does have a drinking problem. His problem is he thinks he's an alcoholic, but all he drinks is apple cider and vinegar. One time we were playing a game of chess, and he spilled his cup or bottle on him, and he's like, oh no, I can't get drunk tonight. And it was not alcohol. It smelled like vinegar. It smelled sort of like cat piss, but it was not alcohol.
In the few conversations that I've had with George Glass, he has never seemed drunk to me. He has always seemed crazy. Alcohol does not make you crazy. He'd have to buy alcohol. He doesn't work. I would like to believe that it was alcohol. I don't think that it is. He's probably drinking lake water.
I don't know if George Glass has any drinking habits. It would seem to support his behavior a lot. I don't know. And sometimes he seems kind of wound up. Other times he's super laid back, almost like he could be on something.
As I said, George Glass is an egomaniac. He is only saying there is a monster in this lake to draw attention to himself.
I don't think he is sane enough to want attention for himself. That is a very logical explanation to a very illogical problem. Yeah, he wants attention. That's a normal person thing to do. George Glass is not a normal person.
What do you say to the people that think you're crazy?
What? I've never heard that before.
If people were to say that you're crazy, what would you say to them?
I would say maybe define crazy. Define crazy. You know, that's why I wear this tie, is to legitimize myself, because I actually do get that from time to time.
Describe to me the shape of your average plesiosaur.
Well, your average plesiosaurus is the shape of a giant gray football with fins and a short or long neck. It varies, with a head on top.
Well, as with all things, like Loch Ness Monster, people think that, it's like 15 feet long and the size of a Buick, or, it's several, like, a school of smaller monsters that comprise one giant entity that all act independently, but they're all the same thing. So it's just referred to as this one, like, entity.
It's an aquatic lizard, of course. I don't know what classification it goes into. I guess I'd be the only expert on it, but aquatic lizard or fish. Both. Why not both? One and both.
Donnelley Park, we know what's in that lake. There are ducks, there are geese, there are catfish that may look a little weird. They do put some, that lake is not clean. But other than that, some water pumps. They empty the lake on a regular basis.
Well, if the lake's really been... I haven't heard of it being drained twice. But if it has, he obviously hides in the mud. Where he hides, he feels closest. And he's a known doppelganger. He gangs doppels. And what do you do?
The lake is emptied, and there's no monster. Does it leave when they empty the lake?
I, for one, support the potential of the multiple creatures theory, where these smaller creatures form a larger one at will, that when they want to, or when they feel safe enough, they join together in this larger creature. But when they're scared, or when their environment disappears, they can separate into infinitely small creatures, and they can hide inside of, like, the mud or the rocks or something like that. They can just, become part of it and hide inside of it. And if all of the other ones are destroyed, so long as one is left, it can regenerate, given the right conditions. It's possible.
I would say the lake is big enough to support maybe one plesiosaurus, but for him to keep going and reproducing and have there still be constantly plesiosaurus living there, they would need a whole family, and there's not enough room in that lake for a whole family of plesiosaurus.
Are you saying that plesiosaurus are incestual?
I'm saying that's why they have their blue tone.
No, it's totally not a man-made lake. Of course not. It's been there for years. It got a lot smaller, but, it's definitely not man-made.
Yeah, I've heard that there's been a few things dumped in there secretly, and there could quite possibly be something like the monster that has developed from that spot on. It's possible there's something else lurking in this little tiny pond.
Do you think it has anything to do with the toxic waste dumping that happens annually?
You know what? I've got to step away now.
Dumping. Have you seen anything? Have you seen anybody dumping anything in the lake? Or anybody accepting cash for barrels going into the lake?
Nope.
I'm just saying, it's theoretically, have you seen anything like that? Because you tell me if you would, right?
The toxic waste would probably have something to do with its testicular size, I would imagine.
If there's any type of nuclear dumping going on at the park, I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen, but I don't think it's anything that's going to create some giant monster.
I heard something about some nuclear waste being dumped in there, and I gotta say, I'm very unhappy about that. I think they need to keep their nuclear waste out of this guy's home. He's not gonna be very happy. He can't be happy. It's gotta be making his food taste terrible.
Catfish get big without having to mutate. the ones in there may have some extra fins. Maybe Mr. Glass has seen a catfish with extra fins. That doesn't look like a plesiosaur.
If you're asking me if this creature exists, you would first have to define existence. Where does life begin? Where does it end? What processes are we talking about? I mean, if you want to talk about definitions, first you'd have to define the word definition.
Well, I mean, you put a story like this out there, there are people who want to believe things like this. Oh, it would be amazing if there was a monster at Donnelley Park. So they hear a dog howl and they pretend that they've never heard a dog howl before. They see a catfish jump in the lake and, oh, there was a splash, it was a monster. No, it was a catfish because that's what lives in there. There are catfish and ducks.
It's pretty generally common for people to entertain the idea, but when it comes to people actually believing in the existence of these things, it isn't as uncommon as you'd think. Anyone who pursues a legend such as Loch Ness Monster's got a little bit of crazy in them, but who doesn't?
I don't think he's crazy. I think he's just, he has a little different of a point of view than everybody else.
What I say to them is watch little Sally behind you. Because one minute you're going to be looking at her, and then you turn around, gone.
He really did see that guy out there, and the good old bond he's got with him going on. He's the only one he wants him to see.
Maybe he's the only one because he's been chosen.
So, do you have any monsters in your fish tank? Because that would be about as believable as there being a monster in Donnelley Park.
I would say that the possibility is always there. But people shouldn't just close themselves off to something like that.
It makes absolutely no sense. I'm done here. Are we done?
If there was a plesiosaur, it would take huge dumps. I have not seen a plesiosaur log floating in Donnelley Park Lake.
Do you believe that they would be floaters?
I believe they would be floaters. There's not enough fat for it to eat that it would sink.
This lake goes deeper than Santa Claus.
kind of awkward. But
Don't ever look at the camera.
No, it's okay. You can look every once in a while. It's fine. Like you have to state it as.
Don't we
if
have to do this over now?
No, we don't. Just.
She's like,
I want to. What percentage of your job would you say consists of sex in the park?
At least half. They had to take down the doors in the bathrooms to stop it.
All right, ask the question again.
I'm so flustered.
Me too.
Not flustering.
Okay. It says recording right there.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We'll use that.